Hello and welcome to another episode of This Week in Metropolis. I'm James.
And I'm Jason Statham's hot brother. On this episode, we have Billy Reddy, who is the presenter and creator of Not Another Podcast, which is fantastic. And please do check it out. He talks with lots of different people about life generally and his experiences in it. And there's a lot to learn from his friends and all his other guests. So, yeah, we can't wait to speak to him.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy it. But before we get into the latest episode, thank you to everyone who has checked out all the episodes from the many that we've done over the last 2 years. But do keep supporting. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Tell your friends, get them on board. We could even talk to them, get them on the show. Do you want to come on the show? Come on the show. Now listen to the latest episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to This Week in Metropolis.
Welcome to another episode of This Week in Metropolis. We are delighted to be joined this week by the host of Not Another Podcast, Billy Reddy. How are you doing?
How are we? We good? I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm very well, very well. We were just talking before we started recording about you used to struggling with your hay fever over the past week. So, guys, keep it together. We can get through this.
The violins are out already.
Yeah.
Just getting through it.
Keep your windows closed. Let's not get any sort of pollen or anything in your... Is it grass? Someone told me the other day. It's actually grass cuttings that are supposed to be...
Whatever
I think it comes from everything, yeah.
At the moment. But Billy, again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us. I know you, we know you through your podcast. And again, something we were just talking about, we both seem to have started around the same sort of time, I think, because we were following each other relatively early. And yeah, we've followed your podcast since then. And again, you just recently celebrated your 50th episode. We've recently celebrated ours. But before we get fully into our podcast, tell us about yourself and tell us about your podcast.
So, it's not already.
The emotion.
God, I know, yeah. God, reflecting. But yeah, so in terms of the podcast, I've been going for... I celebrated the first birthday last week. So we're now starting the second year, which has been good. I put out, I think, 52 episodes, I believe. But yeah, that's been great fun. I get again like to meet like you guys and stuff like that, and others within this community has been great. I guess outside of podcasting, my working life is I work in football, so I work mainly within with Wycombe Wanderers, so within our community side. So I go into schools every day and do mainly like sports coaching, but also things like maths and English, and basically a glorified teacher without the marking. But yeah, that takes up most of my life. Yeah, football or recording myself make rubbish jokes. That seems to be where my life goes.
Did you get more into the podcast because of the pandemic, or was it something to kind of fill that gap as such and keep your creative juices flowing?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd listened to podcasts for the last few years, but I think the pandemic was the massive motivator to go, you know what, let's give it a try, let's see what it does. And I think it got to a point in lockdown where we had the first 3 weeks lockdown. I was like, oh, brilliant, like summer holidays, fantastic. Second 3 weeks, I was like, yeah, again, I can deal with this. And then it got to like pushed on a bit more to like May time, and I was like, nah, you know what, I'm a bit fed up of this now. Yeah. So I almost just put something together and just threw it out and was like, right, let's just see what this does. And then got into the routine of doing it and keeping up with it, and it's almost taken me to this point now. But yeah, definitely the pandemic was the big sole real motivator right at the beginning to get this going.
Did you have a clear vision as to what you wanted to discuss or what you wanted to sort of air on your podcast?
To be honest, not really. I started with the idea of just being a bit reflective and looking back at my life and different stages and different experiences. But then the more it's gone on, the more cloudy my aims for it have been. I've kind of dabbled in different areas and tried doing different things, and I think that's very much just where it'll continue. I think for the most part, I think if I settle on one thing, I kind of go, oh, you know what, I quite like to try and do that thing over there and give that a go. But yeah, to start with, it was very much just a case of just put out an episode or two, see how it goes, see where it takes us, then slowly start getting guests on and things, which made planning and recording a lot easier. But then yeah, literally it's just been, I think if I had to sum it up in a sentence, it's been a bit like flying off the seat of my pants, really.
Do you know what I've liked as well, though, Billy, is one thing you do quite often, and you mentioned there about kind of going from different topics or different things to talk about, is you actually ask for engagement with your audience as well, of would they want to hear you talking about football? Would they want you to hear you talking about music or whatever it is? And I mean, me personally, I find it's quite refreshing when I've listened to your show, and it's kind of that, it is that kind of, well, you've labelled it, I don't know whether it's on every cover now, I can't remember, but navigating life. And that is kind of, although it's called Not Another Podcast, which is quite ironic at the time, because obviously now, I mean, everyone that, if there isn't someone who isn't doing their own podcast, I want to know why, because that's kind of seems to be the phase of the pandemic. I mean, me and Matt started ours
the year before, wasn't it?
Probably 6 to 8 months before, and then due to our individual circumstances, my wife had our second child, we took a bit of a break, and then it wasn't until the pandemic, same as yourself, where we were like, let's get back on this. Like, we had a lot of fun doing it, and again, when we started, it was very similar. We knew kind of, me and Matt worked together, we had the similar interests in music and movies, gaming, things like that, and we said, why don't we just put this into a podcast and share our, you know, blabbering on every day that we would in the office place with the world, see if anyone else likes it. And then like you said, it's then getting other people involved. And with your guests, is it mainly like friends, or was you looking at people you had no kind of relationship with as such?
See, I was quite similar with when getting guests on, was I looked more to start with at people I knew I could hold a good conversation with. And people like conversations I'd had with them in the past, you'd almost look back on them now and think, you know what, they'd have been really good to have like recorded. But definitely to start with, I went to people like who I was close with, who I'd had lots of similar conversations with, and I go, you know what, we can hold a conversation for an hour. Let's get and let's have a chat about whatever. And I think mainly that then evolved my thinking, where it was very much just me for 20 minutes talking about whatever, and it evolved into like navigating life with the help of some friends, with then just basically just looking just to get people from, whether it's my friends or people I vaguely know, or even sometimes people I don't know at all, now more so than ever, which I guess the building blocks of that were built right at the beginning, like 5, 6, 7 episodes in, getting friends on and being comfortable asking questions and getting used to that sort of engagement. And if they're not giving you enough, you almost try and prod it a little bit more for certain things. But I think that's then helped get people who I've either met through this journey, or people I've just reached out to on a whim and gone, oh, you fancy coming on and having a chat? But yeah, definitely for going forward as well, it can help broaden the type of guest I get on as well, from either people I work with in football, or friends from when I was in school, or family members or whatever. Now it can almost be a bit like, right, what do you do? That's pretty cool. Let's go and chat about whatever you do. Kind of similar to like where the avenue I guess you guys go, and you almost have like, what do you guys do? Oh, that's pretty cool. Let's have a chat about what you guys do.
Have there been any people that you've sort of almost begged and pleaded and said, oh, come on, we'll have such a good conversation, and they've been, oh, no, I'm not doing it. I don't want to be on camera, or I don't want to, speak on a mic as such?
I've had people who I've tried to reach out to, and they've gone, yeah, let's do it. But then they forget completely. And then you go back to them and you go, you still up for doing it? Yeah, just let me know. And then you let them know, and they just completely disappear. But I think the one who I'm just kind of waiting for the right time to do it, I want to get my dad on. And the reason for that is, so he was an ex-professional footballer, and he's lived 9 or 10 lives. So it'll be cool to be able to get him on to do something. But again, I feel in myself, I don't want to rush that. I'd like that to be at a point where if ever the podcast gets to a level, I can go, you know what, this would be the right time for that. I don't want that to just be something I call like the night before, go, let's do this quickly and just rush through it. I'd like to take time on that and make that the best it can be. But yeah, I think luckily I've been quite lucky. People I've reached out to, for the most part, have been quite receptive and gone, yeah, let's do it. And I think that then, I guess, is our job then in that sense, is when they've trusted us to come on, we're then the ones who have to create that environment so they can kind of feel comfortable enough to have a chat and to open up about things and to let the hair down a little bit. That's often what I guess people who listen to the podcast don't really realize until they're in that situation, is we have to create that environment. And luckily I've had some great people on who've been nothing but supportive.
That's really good. We're the same, actually, and I think it's a lot easier when it's a close friend. I mean, we've had our friends on a few times, and you know, they're the sort of people that you can have a conversation with, like me and Matt do every day or whatever. It's easier with them ones. I found, and I don't know if you're the same, Billy, but when we started getting people on that we didn't know, that was when the real kind of nerves started hitting, because we were thinking, oh God, I don't want to say the wrong thing, or it was just that kind of. But you soon realise they're just people, really. At the end of the day, whether they've been on TV, whether they've been in a band or whatever, they're still like you and me, really. And as long as I think that's one of the things we've always been told feedback-wise from our guests, is that it's very relaxed. We don't ask kind of probing questions and start kind of dig up dirt or anything like that. But have you found that we're so kind of planned with our guests now with questions, and there's a lot more structure to it than when we've got a friend on and we can just kind of shoot the breeze and have a chit chat. Do you get them nerves, that kind of little bit of a tension necessarily?
Yeah, I tell you what, I think with friends, I can be a little bit more just go, right, I kind of want to talk about this. I kind of want to talk about this with this person, and then just literally just see where it goes and see what happens with it. But I remember vividly the first or second guest that I had on who wasn't someone I was necessarily really close with. So I remember one of my guests, Grace, I think I had her on that episode 9 or one of those early ones, and I remember I went to visit her to record it rather than doing it over Zoom or whatever. I was like, right, we'll just I'm in the area, let's do it. I remember I did like a page or two of notes for like a 30-minute episode. I've done like a full thing of notes, questions, all sorts, and the theme for it was like soundtrack to my life. So she had like 5 songs or albums that resonated with her at different times in her life, and it would be very much led by her, and I'd kind of prod with different questions. But I remember I wrote down about 20 or 30 questions for this chat, and then kind of started talking and kept kind of going, yeah, well, nice one, really good, and then looking across, picking question 12 and going, trying to squeeze it in, and then realising afterwards, like when I was editing it, I was like, no, I don't need to do that. And then I think I remember I had a musician come on, again quite early, and we like did almost like Zoom, but like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and again, like first real notable person who's doing something in that sort of industry who I've had on, and I was like, wow, I've got to try and smash this now. And again, like overthought it and over kind of planned it, and I think even then at the end of it, when I look back on it, it's probably not I look at it and go, oh, I could have done a lot better there if I just relaxed. But I think now definitely going and chatting to different people is a bit more, I feel a bit more relaxed. I can just go and just have a conversation, have a few things I might want to mention to them about maybe what they do or views on what's happening at the minute or whatever. But I feel now having that practice of going in, recording, chatting, going through it and editing and stuff, now it's a little bit more natural, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think you mentioned a couple of things there, but is there anything where so when you listen back to your old episodes, you think, I can't believe I used to do that? Is there one thing or sort of a couple of things you think, oh God, I can't believe I did that, and I'm so glad I don't anymore as such?
I have when you guys go through your content as well, and having those like little words you use to just fill gaps. So I'd always have the or my one was kind of. So everything is, I probably even do it now, and it's always just kind of talking about but kind of this and kind of and then I'd go through the edit, and I'd always have to I'd spend more time just trying to chop those out to make it sound natural, and then you miss one, and you go. You kind of go through it, and that one bugs you. You might make a really good point, but you heard kind of, and I'm like, it does my head in. But they're the sort of things like that really bug me when I go back and listen, because I'd find one and then be really conscious throughout, but then when I'm having a conversation, they're like complete blind. I'm like completely blind to them. But I know definitely when I listen back, I'm gonna go, oh my God, you've done it again.
I was going to say, for ours, it was always, I'd clear my throat in completely like inappropriate times. It'd just been this big, like as someone saying something, and James would be, what was it?
I do my, I'd say the same thing like 3 or 4 times, didn't I?
Yes, there is that as well.
I go like that. Yeah. And for some reason, I don't know why, but and Matt used to find it hilarious. But
it does, especially when you're editing it, because you keep going over that bit again and again and again, and it just be
like I've got some sort of
makes me laugh now,
like a record.
30 minutes of edited of me going. But what, similar to what Matt just said, what about the equipment that you use and any sort of, I mean, when we started, it was literally just on our laptops, we had earphones in or whatever. Now I've got a mic here, I've got a ring light. I mean, I'm so kind of passionate about it that I've got to have all the gear. And Matt's the same, we've got the same things, didn't we, Matt? So just because you can, even with that, you can hear the difference. Like we sound really tinny in them earlier episodes, and then my dog's walking in the kitchen, you can hear them on the floor, sort of thing. Like, just paranoid about it.
Yeah, 100%. I remember starting. I think the only reason I really started was I found that app, that Anchor, and I literally did it all on my phone, and like put my phone in, put my headphones in, sat in my car in a car park somewhere in the quiet, and did everything there. And then listening back, I was like, at first I was like, this is all right, this is all right. But then all of a sudden, I think got to like December, January time when I bought a mic and started to do things on my laptop and things, and edit on my laptop. Then I listened to the first episode with a mic, and I was like, oh my God, this is like so much better. And then going back to the other one, I was like, that sounds rubbish now. I wish I'd done it sooner. But that's one thing I think definitely I'm very minimalist at the minute in terms of just a mic, trying to cancel out any background noise or whatever, and just then editing the footage on my laptop. But I think that depends on how far this goes and how further along I go in terms of what I try and do with the setup. Do I kind of try and take it to the next level, or do I try and keep that minimalist approach?
Well, it's an investment as well, isn't it? That's the thing. I mean, none of this stuff is cheap as well. So, but again, it's that kind of quality side. And I think you're right. I think when me and Matt decided during the pandemic that we were going to kind of give it another go and put a little bit more emphasis into it, that was when we started kind of gearing up, so to speak, as to get the quality of it right. And instantly, like you said with a mic, I think that's the biggest thing, because obviously most people tend to listen on Anchor or on Spotify, wherever, and it's that sound quality that makes such a difference. Like, so smooth with these mics and things like that. But
you could make that the best point ever, but if the quality's poor, then no one will hear it, and people just go, oh, you know what, drop me out of that, don't want anything to do with that. But
I think on the other hand, though, that's the beauty of doing podcasts, is that literally you can have your phone and a pair of headphones and just open up the Anchor app and you're out there, which is so cool. It's it's so DIY, and anyone who thinks they've got a voice or a subject that could be shared, you can do it, can't you?
Yeah, it leads you in really nice. It's almost the nice kind of step into the water almost, I think. And then after that, then you can think, you know what, let's try and upgrade it a bit. But definitely for a starter, I don't know if Anchor are going to be giving us a commission, I think, for this part. But yeah, definitely that sort of thing. If people, I guess, if you, like you said, if you haven't started one already, then I don't know where you've been the last 12 months. But yeah, I think definitely for a starting point, they're always really good and they're so easy to use. That's what really kept me in it. I could just do everything on my phone to start with. I was like, brilliant. I could just get through that no problem, rather than having to go and get this software and get this type of microphone and get this sort of setup. That would just put me off right at the beginning. But now it's something that you've kind of evolved from, I guess. Yeah.
You do this all on your own. Is there anyone supporting you with the artwork or things like that?
No, I do everything on my own. With Canva on the Canva on the phone. Then
love a bit of Canva.
Yeah, love it. Get to like 5:45 and go, oh my god, I need to post, and then try and get something in quickly. Have a few templates, and then 7M with episodes as well. I've done everything on my own, and I think depends on if someone wants to come in and sponsor us and do a little bit.
It's just credit to you, mate. Credit to you. Going back to your guests that you've had on, who would you say, and this isn't a kind of favouritism thing, but who
I say be careful, they're his friends.
Yeah, if they're listening, they're going to want to hear.
So to get unfollowed, blocked, cancelled.
Yeah. All right, let's phrase it a different way. Which one did you find the most interesting? Not that that's going to make the others better,
well, which ones were really boring that you spoke to?
The least boring one was. Cool. I think I always refer back to, and again, like everyone I've had has been brilliant, and none of them hopefully will take it the wrong way. But I think I had the most interesting conversation, probably in terms of stories and things I hadn't heard before, from one of my good friends, G, who I work with. I used to go to school with, and we'd kind of been through school, knew of each other, and were friendly in that sort of thing. But then we started working together, and then we're like, oh my god, like person I recognised, and we started to get really, really friendly. Then asked her to come on the show. She's had lots of good experiences and stuff, and she told me about the time one of her really good friends passed away at university, and a story like I was like, and then the kind of how she was affected from that, and what her journey was from that moment. And I was like, that sort of thing. In my head, I was like, I think I sent a message afterwards. I was like, "You sure you want me to keep it in?" It's heavy.
Yeah.
And then she was like, no. It's like she's like, and that's one thing with her. Like she's so like wanting to support people and show people and like spread awareness and stuff. I was like, wow, like this is like, that blew me away. I was like, fair play to you. But I think in terms of content I would like to listen to, and it went from of what I do and stuff I would listen to if I was to listen to someone else's, the kind of style of it. I always refer to Andy, who I've had on about 3 or 4 times, he was my line manager at work, and now I'm working in a different department, but we've had hundreds of the same sort of conversations that luckily I've managed to get on record 3 or 4 times, and they're just the nice, easiest flowing, silly, quite funny, can be quite deep at times, but they're like the type of content I'm like, you know what, that's a bit of me. So I think if I had to go really interesting and surprising, I'd go G. But I think if I had to go for content I would listen to, it'd probably be Andy. So I'll let him know about that.
Well, I think it's a good time.
Yeah, I was going to
say. Yeah.
What for? Is it time for this?
Question mark.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on again. I know your guest has talked on their podcast about their life experiences. So I was just wondering, what is the best piece of advice that they've ever been given that has, helped them in their everyday life? Thanks. Cheers.
Question mark.
It's a really hard one to answer, because I think you pick up so many life lessons, don't you? But Well, my one isn't from anyone I know. It's from someone called Gary Vaynerchuk, who you may or may not have heard of, who I absolutely love. And I've been following him online for quite a while. And he does like such a mixture of sort of business advice and all different things. But he does, especially now, his focus is on sort of happiness and empathy and all these sort of things, and just like helping each other out. And one of the things he I remember he did a video probably a few years ago now, and he's very direct in the way he says things, and it's probably quite easy to sort of get the wrong end of the stick with this. But he said, like, I think someone was there asking him for advice, and he said to them, like, remember that no one cares about what's happened before to yourself. Like, so and that sounds really harsh, but it's no one cares if you've struggled with mental health. No one cares if someone's died, or no one cares if you've had a bad sort of experience in the past. They're just looking at you as you are now. If they don't know any of that stuff, it doesn't matter. That's in here. You're the one who's thinking about that, and you're the one that's setting yourself in that light. But in the reality is, your manager isn't judging you on that. Your friends aren't judging you on that, and the people you meet aren't judging you on that. So you shouldn't. And I think it takes sometimes. Everyone's got things in their past that sort of they think back to, or maybe sort of hold them back in certain regards. But you do. I think that what I like about him is he's very just matter of fact with things like that, and I think that's just such a for me anyway. Like hearing someone saying that makes sense to me as
well. I guess because it's relative to you, isn't it? That's the thing. If them things have happened, that's relative to the individual rather than everyone else.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you, in that short space of time, managed to think of one, Billy?
I'm just having a look on my like cupboard here. I remember during lockdown actually, I had like post-it notes, and I've occasionally stuck post-it notes of different things. So I'm just trying to read them and see if there's anything good there. So one thing that's always stuck with me, and I remember I've kind of, especially like through different times of my life, you have your peaks and your troughs and stuff. And I've always been told, or my dad has always said things like, whenever there's suffering, afterwards there's ease. So kind of that idea of whatever you're kind of going through, afterwards there's always something better, as well as and it was something like comparison is the thief of joy. And I always find that always guilty of it, whether it is with work and kind of where I'm at on my journey. I found it with the podcast, like massively at different times. I kind of look at other people and go, oh my God, like they've absolutely smashed it. They're flying, their downloads are through the roof. Their engagement on social media is massive compared to mine. And like, then I kind of go, oh, but what am I doing wrong? Yeah. But then I always try and level it by just thinking, having that thought of, comparison is the thief of joy. And thinking it doesn't really matter what they're doing, where they are. They might have just figured it out sooner than I have, or they might have just been in, I guess, the right place in the right time, if you're going to be cliched and stuff. But yeah, I think those two off the top of my head, I think definitely more the second one. That comparison is the thief of joy. I think that's something that I take with me as wherever I can, especially in those moments where I find myself getting a bit fed up or getting a bit down about where I am and all that sort of stuff, whether it is podcast or work or life. Really.
I really like that.
That's really nice. Yeah.
And I'm guilty for that massively. Like, there's been times during our podcast where I was saying this the other day to someone that, once an episode goes out, every hour or every couple of hours, I'm looking to see how many people have listened, or how many people have watched, and then if it isn't as high as last week, why? I love this episode. Why has no one listened to it? And you start kind of beating yourself up about it. But at the end of the day, and I mean, I guess I don't want to kind of praise Matt too much, but Matt was the what? Go on then. Here come them tears again. Matt was the one that said to me, remember why we do it, you know, and we do it for fun. We do it because it's something we enjoy doing. It's not about, you know, if anyone, and I think that's the thing from going back to when we first started doing it, if any one person listened to it, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
Because they're listening
Definitely.
to me and him talk about things that we like. And then, you know, and where it is now, we've had some episodes that have done really well, some that have only had kind of a few listens or whatever, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So
But it enables us to meet people like yourself, you know, and all the other guests, and share those experiences that normally we wouldn't, you know, be able to. And
100%.
like, you know, there's a friend we've made who was a very early sort of, you know, person who reached out to us, Robbie, who lives in the States. And I remember the time when he first reached out to us or to James and said, do you want to be on my podcast? And we was like, oh, God. Like, what do we do? Like, we're amateurs at this, and it was such a big thing. And we've done one again with him in recent weeks, and it's so cool. You know, in a couple of years ago, if someone said, "Oh, you're going to be sitting there talking to some guy from America about, you know, whatever,"
Yeah.
Really?
Well, not even that. Just even like we've had people when we had Otis Dealey on, when we've had Ricky Martin, the Art Ninja, not the.
I was going to say Live La Vida Loca. I was like, oh my
No,
God.
Unfortunately, he wasn't available.
He was.
But speaking to people that we'd seen on the TV, Ellie Gibson. I mean, I was going a bit mad about that one because I just thought I think she's hilarious. I loved her on Go 8-Bit, you know, and she's really funny. And it's like buzzing about it. And then afterwards you come up, I remember every one of them episodes where we had someone on some form of status, we'd go like, wow, can you believe that?
Yeah, what just happened?
Yeah.
Well, we got away with that, I think. Was
I think she liked us, or I think they liked it. You know, it's incredible. And I think that's what you have to remember. And I completely agree. I think that second bit of advice that you said there was spot on. We have actually got another question. I did post out. I've been going through them, and one that kind of stuck out to me, with today being the start of the Euros. And I'm going to say this to you, Matt. The questions come from another friend of ours, Steve, who's the host of SCW, the wrestling channel. He wants to apologise to Matt because it's a football-related question, and Matt's knowledge on football. If I ask Matt, can you tell me who a current Premier League player is?
What's the guy who does all the great stuff with the school dinners? What's he
Yeah.
called?
I was expecting Matt to say something like Kevin Keegan, but anyway.
No.
School dinners.
I'm quite good with late 80s, mid 90s football. I'm okay. Peter Shilton, you know, those sort of names.
Yeah, he's still going.
Marcus
Anyway,
Rashford.
Marcus
There you go.
Rashford, well done.
Give you that.
See?
And that's why, Billy, me and Matt don't usually bring up football on This Week in Metropolis.
It's very one-sided.
It'd be very one-sided. It's more me. I'm a huge football fan. But Steve wants to know, Billy, who do you think? Because I've seen your stuff. You're a huge football fan. Who do you think are going to be the breakout players during the Euros? Write these down, Matt.
This is the tournament. I think it's for England's side anyway. Set up for like Phil Foden to absolutely smash it. Him, Mount, and Grealish are the three from England for me who their performances will dictate how well England do. So I think them three definitely. Cool. I mean, trying to think of other people, but maybe someone like Kai Havertz at Germany, who had a good end to the season at Chelsea. I think he's someone who now with a bit of confidence he might look to go and do well for Germany. And I tell you who I've liked, I think after watching the Europa League is it Gerard Moreno, Spanish forward?
Spain, yeah.
He's someone who I thought, he's decent. So depending on if he can get game time over Morata, who couldn't hit a barn door, hopefully he can. It'd be nice to see someone like him come in and start to steal the show a bit. But I definitely think that English three, I think they can take the tournament by storm.
Yeah, and do you think? I commented on your post earlier, I think, or yesterday. when you asked who you thought were going to win the Euros. I said England. But realistically, do you think England can win?
Cool. I think this is probably the best chance they've had for a long time. I think the World Cup was a time where at the start of the tournament you were like, well, if they do get to the quarterfinals, you'd be happy. But then as the draw went on and how fortunate we got with the draw, you got to the semis, you're like, you know what, we can win this now. One in four, you can go and win the tournament. But almost left a bit disappointed that they didn't beat Croatia.
Yeah.
But I think this tournament, with the squad they have, especially the attacking talent, I think this is the best chance they've had for a long time to go and win a tournament. Because I think apart from maybe France, but there's been a bit of unrest in France in their camp, and teams like Germany are always solid, Italy always solid, but no one really apart from maybe France sticks out as someone who they're the ones to beat.
Yeah.
But I think depends how England, because the draw's weird. I think if they win their group, they play second of France, Germany, Portugal, which is which is a final in itself. But again, I guess you have to beat the big teams to win the tournament. But if they come second in their group, they play against another random group. So, but I think it depends on who they get. I've said over this week, I've got the game on here actually as well. My dark horse, the ones I'm going to go for are Italy. I think Italy are going to go and do it. I just find
they won their group, didn't they, with like maximum points? Although it was a pretty weak group, I think.
Yeah, and I think they've been unbeaten in like 3 years, but no one seems to be talking about them.
No.
But they always seem to be a team that they either do catastrophically bad or go really far. But I think got a couple of Italian friends. I think they're going to appreciate me saying that. But yeah, I think Italy are going to go and do it.
Nice. Matt, do you, with your boys, do you think this year potentially you're going to get more into watching it? Are the boys interested in the Euros?
Well, you know what? This afternoon, one of the first things Leo said to me is like, "We're going to watch the football on Sunday. England are playing." I was like, "Are they? Great!" You know.
What are they playing?
Who England? Yeah, it's brilliant. But the thing is, I'm not a football fan now. I don't follow a team or anything like that. But when it comes to the World Cup or the big games that you can get behind sort of your home country and whatever, brilliant. I thoroughly enjoy them and I'll get into them and I'll watch them. I'm not. It's not like I'd watch every game. But sort of definitely the big England ones I'll be watching.
There's just a bit more of the day almost around it, where people are. But I remember the World Cup 2018, and the sun was shining, people were just positive. And you think, brilliant. Oh my God, England are playing the quarterfinal today. Everyone was like, I'm absolutely buzzing for it. Even like with like the stuff we do at work and that, I'm always in schools and always around football, everyone was absolutely buzzing. And it almost seems to just be sport that does that more than anything.
I agree
especially with England and stuff. I think until they get beat and then everyone's like toxic again. But I think for the most part, everyone's this week has been like super excited about it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is like the best time of the year for me when this sort of football comes on. Watching Turkey against Italy, like no one cares about that originally, but because it's the Euros, I'm all in for it.
Yeah, exactly the same. I remember many years ago. God, was it 2002 maybe?
Japan and South Korea.
Yeah, and the games were on at like 4 in the morning or whatever, and I was like up early to watch it. Literally, my alarm would go off, and I'd be there in bed watching a game. Like, it's just mental. I mean, well, that wasn't the England Brazil game. That was an early one, I'm pretty sure.
I'm going to make you feel old. I remember being in primary school. I think it was in year 1, and we got allowed to go to school early, like 6 in the morning, because England versus Brazil was on. I remember being in primary school watching it. I think I turned up just as Michael Owen scored, and then as the kind of game was going on, seeing Ronaldinho's free kick, and I was like, then everyone in the playground then afterwards was either really flat depressed or trying to do that free kick. I was just like, thinking back, and I was like, wow, that was those sort of memories from like tournaments and stuff is just mad and magical.
Wasn't helped after that when the teacher says, "Come on, kids, we got geography now."
Science first. I'm like,
But Leo was really excited about it today because his teacher's into football. His teacher's a Chelsea fan, and well, see whatever you two think about that. But he was putting up like England flags, and they were listening to Vindaloo as well. Apparently,
Amazing.
to get in the mood for it.
Like the music. I mean, music's a topic I want to go on to in a second with Billy. But even the music. I mean, they don't do it anymore really. But Three Lions, Vindaloo, all of them sort of songs. I remember during the World Cup last year. I remember on our way to watch the Sweden game, which was what, the quarterfinals, was it? And we were in the car, and we had them songs blaring out just to get you pumped up for it. It was like, you know, there's something about them songs. There was actually they were on TalkSport the other day, Badil and Skinner talking about it.
Yeah.
And just they never expected it to be, because you know they can release songs. I mean, Matt, you must remember the John Barnes one that he done with
World in Motion with New Order.
Amazing
Like, I was playing that to him this afternoon after like the football talk. I was like, have a listen to this.
I was going to ask actually on that thing, what is your favourite football / World Cup football song? And for me, I was just going to say World in Motion's my favourite. I think that wins it for me.
John Barnes rapping.
Yeah, John Barnes. That does me every single time.
I mean, it is incredible, that song. But for me, it's Three Lines. I think that was probably just my era, I think, because that was, what,
96, I would have said.
96,
oh, 96 and then 98, they done it again, didn't they? So
Yeah.
for me, that was kind of when I was 94 when I watched my first was that Euro 94? I was Euro 96.
World Cup
Euro
94.
96, yeah.
So Euro 96 was probably the first international tournament that I watched properly. But that song kind of just goes with it, doesn't it, hand in hand. But with music, another thing I absolutely love that you do on your Instagram page is when you do the higher or lower on the song. So Matt, if you haven't seen it, on Billy's stories, he'll put a song on there, and then that'll be your bass, and then the next song you've got to pick, is it better or worse or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there'll be about 10, 12 songs or whatever. And some of them tracks, and they're such a great mix, Billy, as well, with kind of not just kind of new songs, and they're not just the ones that are overplayed on the radio either. So you might throw one of them in to get everyone to remember them.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of really good kind of album songs. What's your kind of taste in music, or is it quite varied?
It's super varied. I've been, and I think with it, I'm quite nerdy with it. With music, I need to know everything about it. Lyrics, I need to know everything about. If I find something I like, I will hammer it to death until I know it inside out. And I've been dubbed the human Shazam when we're going like staff nights out and stuff.
Well, you've met your match, Billy, because
That's it.
Buzzing. But literally every time we go out, every anything that comes on, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that one. We rarely something I don't know, and I think that's just because I just love music, all different types from all different eras. It's just
nice.
Yeah, I'm just very much I geek out about it. Have
you got a favourite album that you're listening to at the moment?
I'm gonna get my Spotify up actually as we do this. But I think my favourite album ever, while I look for my recent ones, is my favourite album ever is Kanye West's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. That's just a 10 out of 10. Even and as well Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, they can be either or for me.
We're on the same page with this. Yeah, that's just.
I'll go. See you, lads.
Yes. See you. Do you want to host a podcast?
Just about music.
To Pimp a Butterfly is just it's a work of art. I mean, Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is as well, but I just think Kendrick Lamar he just nailed it. It was just otherworldly. That you just can't describe that.
Definitely. Yeah. I remember I first listened to it when I was I think I was like 17 or something. like right when it came out, and I didn't really get it. I was like, oh, this song's decent.
No, it's not an easy listen either.
I took time to go and just listen to it all the way through and just soak it all in. And I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. How the kind of, very much, and I listen to Dissect podcast where he dissects the entire album in his first series, and that's one of my favorite podcasts. But it's just literally like from start to finish, how the narrative of the album, how each song plays a pivotal part in the narrative, and how it just builds this story, and you're like, oh my God, this is just unbelievable.
Yeah. And the same with it, I don't know whether you listened to Damn that came out sort of after that.
Yeah.
And the fact that like the meticulous planning he puts into his albums, this album, James, has like a story, like arc throughout it, starting from start to finish. But he did it so that it works in reverse as well.
Yeah.
And he actually sort of released the album in reverse. And when you listen to it in reverse, it's almost a completely different album, but it makes complete sense.
It's like the idea of like wickedness and weakness. So like one side almost represents choosing the path of wickedness, and one path chooses the path of like showing remorse and that sort of thing, and how each avenue leads to different circumstances. I'm like, this is outrageous.
It's another level deep. That his stuff amazing.
I've only ever done that, I think, with albums by the 1975, where I've actually looked into like what the meaning was behind the lyrics, and listened to Matty Healy talk about it he's been on Absolute and things like that, XFM, and talk about it, and you just kind of like that kind of, I find really interesting where the ideas have come from. I'm not a huge, I mean, probably when I was in my earlier 20s, I was probably more into Kanye West then, I'd say, when he was kind of, maybe I was a little bit older than that actually, like Stronger. Was that one of his songs, wasn't it? Yeah. So that sort of era.
Mid 2000s.
Yeah. So, but music, I find I'm very much the same. And Matt, again, has kind of got me listening to a lot of more older stuff. Like, I hadn't really listened to the Smashing Pumpkins that much, and I was a big kind of indie rock fan kind of when I was younger. But like Smashing Pumpkins, when I listen to them, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like discovering, and I think that's one of the benefits of like Spotify and Amazon Music and things like, where you can discover songs from the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, go further back if you need to, and really appreciate, and then kind of see similarities with some of the artists of today or when you were growing up.
Yeah. And
you go, but that sounds quite like one that always winds Matt up is one of my favourite bands from my youth is a band called Fight Star. Now, if you know Fight Star, Charlie
from Busted. Yeah.
Charlie Simpson from Busted, exactly. Because I was a big Busted fan, and then he left, and I was like, see you, Busted. I'm following Charlie, because I was really into like Linkin Park and Korn and Slipknot and all these bands. I thought, this is going to be awesome. It got slated, but I still absolutely loved it, because it had someone from that band that I like, and then he was starting his own.
That actually, sentimental value, like immediately, like
but I also appreciate the fact that he was saying, this isn't right for me, and this is what I want to do. I thought that was, not many people would go and do that. So in the later years, they done a song called Breaking the Law, a true original, which Matt told me was done by, who was it, Matt?
Judas Priest.
Never heard of him. So
in the early 80s,
yeah, but the newer one. Anyway, my love for Charlie is since, and then he done his solo stuff, acoustic and folk music, which is really cool. Love all that. Then he went running back to him, which actually made me lose a bit of respect for him.
Yeah, but I think they just wrote him a big enough check, didn't they? That's all it was. How much? Like, I'm in Busted now. Forget that rubbish.
I'm never returning
I didn't really
mean it. That's what he said. I'm never What? So
yeah, never. I said never return. When I said never return, I meant not for the minute. I'll be back.
Exactly. But yeah, music. Wow, that's a whole nother episode, I think, there, Billy. Right, Matt, have you got any further questions?
No.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for joining us. Where can our listeners and our viewers find you on socials, on wherever you are?
It's been an absolute pleasure. You can find me on Instagram at @notanotherpodcast_. Twitter is at @NApodcast_, but I'm rubbish at Twitter. So I kind of veer towards Instagram more so. And podcast is available wherever you listen, really.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We will put the links to the show in the description. And once again, hopefully have you on again one day. But thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you guys. It's been great to get on and to finally virtually meet you guys as well.
Cheers, Billy.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Don't forget, if you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe on whatever platform you're watching and listening on, because in that way you won't miss out on any future episodes we put out.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms as well. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, give us a follow, and you'll be able to keep up to date with all of the latest episodes and posts that we put out there. But thank you for listening and watching.
And we'll see you next episode.